The fuel industry is not what you think it is anymore. It used to be simple. You paid for premium, you got premium. You trusted the pump, you trusted the brand. That was the deal, and for decades it held. Not anymore. Today, the fuel market is quietly splitting into two realities, and most drivers have absolutely no idea which side of that split they are standing on. On one side, you have high-volume stations with strict quality control, rapid fuel turnover, and corporate-level supply chain enforcement. On the other, low-traffic stations, aging underground infrastructure, and fuel that sits, slowly degrades, and sometimes gets blended in ways you were never told about and never consented to. Here is the thing nobody in this industry wants to explain out loud. Most pumps do not have separate lines for each fuel grade. That means the premium fuel you just paid extra for, the one you chose specifically to protect your engine, might still be contaminated with regular fuel left sitting in the shared hose from the last customer. A small amount, sure, but in a high-performance engine with tight thermal management tolerances, small is enough. And if that substandard fuel damages your engine, your warranty has already decided who is at fault. It is not the station. It is not the fuel supplier. It is you, because you cannot prove what came out of that pump. Smart drivers are already changing where and how they refuel. Stick with me until the end, because the final station type on this list reveals something almost no one talks about. The safest fuel in the country often comes from the least obvious place. Station 1. Shell. Shell was once the gold standard of global fuel retail. The brand carried genuine weight, engineering credibility, global infrastructure, a reputation built over more than a century of operation. Here is where it gets truly complicated. Shell today is a franchise-heavy network, and franchising, by its very nature, introduces inconsistency. What the corporate brand promises and what your local Shell operator actually delivers can be two very different things. The V-Power marketing is aggressive and expensive, and it works because most consumers associate premium branding with premium delivery. And get this, the additive quality in Shell's fuel formula is genuinely consistent across the supply chain. The base fuel, however, varies regionally depending on the terminal it was sourced from, and that variance does not show up on the pump label. You are paying a premium price for a premium additive package that gets injected into base fuel you have zero visibility into. The real kicker is that shared pump infrastructure means fuel-grade mixing risk exists at every single location, regardless of brand prestige. Bottom line, Shell is a luxury label poured through a very average system, and the gap between perception and reality costs you every time you fill up. Station 2. Arco built its entire brand identity on one thing, being the cheapest pump in the region. That strategy worked. It built a loyal customer base, high traffic volume, and a reputation as the working driver's station. But cheap fuel built on a cost-cutting model is a very specific kind of promise. Here is the thing about Arco's operational philosophy. The decision to historically avoid credit card infrastructure, the stripped-down amenity model, the aggressive margin compression, those are not just business choices. They are signals about how the brand thinks about every cost in the chain, including the additive packages that protect your fuel system. Arco fuel has often been noted to lack the premium additive concentrations found in top-tier certified competitors, and over time, that gap shows up as carbon deposits, injector buildup, and fuel system degradation that your dealership will happily charge you to fix without ever asking where you fill up. Translation: your engine is a precision instrument, and running it on sub-additive fuel is the mechanical equivalent of using the wrong oil. It does not fail dramatically. It fails slowly, expensively, and in ways that are almost impossible to trace back to the pump. Bottom line, cheap fuel sometimes behaves exactly like it. Station 3. Costco gas stations. Now here is the entry on this list that will genuinely surprise you. Costco is not a fuel company. It is a warehouse retailer that happens to sell gasoline. And yet, in nearly every independent fuel quality study conducted over the past decade, Costco consistently ranks among the top performers in the country. Not top performers for a budget option. Top performers, period. Here is the thing about why Costco works when so many others fail. Volume. Costco gas stations operate at extraordinary throughput levels, which means fuel is cycling out of those underground tanks constantly. Fuel degradation is a real and documented problem. Ethanol-blended fuels in particular absorb atmospheric moisture over time, and water in your fuel system is the beginning of a very expensive problem. At Costco, the fuel simply does not sit long enough for that process to take hold. And get this, Costco holds top-tier certification, meaning the additive packages meet the standards that major automakers, including BMW, General Motors, Toyota, and Honda, have specified as the minimum threshold for protecting modern engine components. That is not marketing language. That is the industry's North Star for fuel quality, and Costco meets it while charging you less than almost every competitor on this list. Bottom line, this is the rare and genuine case where cheap fuel is actually clean fuel. If you have been driving past Costco to pay more somewhere else, you have been paying extra to take on more risk. If you have ever noticed your car runs noticeably smoother after filling up at certain stations and rougher at others, hit like right now, because what you experienced was real. And this is exactly why it happens. Subscribe if you want the unfiltered truth about what the automotive industry is actually selling you. Station 4. BP is one of the most recognized fuel brands on the planet, and it has spent billions of dollars trying to make you forget the last decade of its history. The rebranding campaigns have been extensive, the marketing spend has been enormous, and the premium positioning has been relentless. Here is where it gets truly telling. BP operates with the same franchising inconsistency that plagues Shell, but with an added layer of complexity: storage tank maintenance that varies dramatically across locations. Water intrusion into underground fuel storage tanks is one of the most common and most underreported sources of fuel contamination in the retail fuel industry, and tanks that are not regularly inspected and maintained are the primary vector for that contamination entering your engine. And get this, water in your fuel does not announce itself. There is no warning light, no immediate failure, no obvious symptom. What you get instead is gradual injector corrosion, inconsistent combustion, and over time, fuel system damage that your powertrain warranty may not cover once the investigation traces it back to contaminated fuel. Translation: a polished corporate image does not waterproof an aging underground tank. Bottom line, BP is a premium brand sitting on infrastructure that, at many locations, has not kept pace with the promise on the sign. Station 5. Independent stations with no major brand. This is the category that represents the highest risk on this entire list, and it is also the one that drivers consistently underestimate. Independent gas stations, no major brand affiliation, no centralized quality enforcement, no corporate compliance framework, are the biggest wildcard in the American fuel market. The fuel sourcing at these locations can shift from supplier to supplier based purely on who offered the lowest price that week. There is no standardized, additive package requirement, no minimum top-tier threshold, and no accountability structure that follows the fuel from the terminal to your tank. Here is the thing about why this matters more than most drivers realize. Low traffic is the compounding problem. Fuel that sits in an underground tank for weeks is not the same fuel that went in. Ethanol separation, water accumulation, sediment buildup from tank corrosion, all of these processes accelerate over time, and a low-traffic independent station is a perfect incubation environment for every one of them. The real kicker is the warranty angle. If your engine sustains damage and the investigation points to contaminated fuel, the burden of proof is entirely on you. You need to demonstrate where you filled up, what the fuel quality was at that location, and how the contamination caused the specific damage in question. At an independent station with no corporate records, no quality testing logs, and no accountability trail, that proof does not exist. You are left with a repair bill and nowhere to direct it. Bottom line, every fill-up at an unbranded independent station is a calculated risk. Sometimes it is fine, sometimes it is not. The problem is you will not know which one it was until months later. Be honest in the comments. Have you ever filled up at a random unfamiliar station and immediately felt something different in how your car ran? Drop it below, because the responses to this question are always more alarming than people expect. Station 6. Walmart fuel stations. Here is where this list starts to invert your expectations in a significant way. Walmart fuel stations operate on a model that shares more with Costco than most people realize. High traffic volume, corporate-level supply chain management, competitive pricing designed to drive store foot traffic rather than maximize fuel margin. The result is a fueling infrastructure that punches well above its price point. Many Walmart fuel locations carry top-tier certification, and the turnover volume at busy locations means the contamination risks associated with long-term fuel storage are substantially reduced. And get this, Walmart's leverage in the supply chain is not trivial. A company that moves that volume of fuel across that many locations has real contractual power over the quality standards it demands from suppliers, and it uses that power because fuel quality is a customer satisfaction issue as much as it is a product issue. Translation: Walmart's incentive structure actually aligns with yours here, which is not something you can say about every station on this list. Bottom line, cheap does not mean careless at Walmart. In fact, at many locations, it means the opposite. Station 7. Chevron. Chevron occupies a unique position in the fuel market. The Techron additive package is genuinely excellent. That is not marketing spin, it is well documented in independent third-party testing, and it is the reason major automakers have historically referenced Chevron fuel in their owner's manuals as a recommended option for maintaining fuel system cleanliness. But here is where it gets truly important to understand the distinction. The additive package and the delivery infrastructure are two completely separate things. Chevron's chemistry is top tier. Chevron's pump and hose infrastructure is subject to exactly the same shared line contamination risks as every other retailer on this list. You are paying a premium price point, often the highest pump price in a given market, for premium additive chemistry that arrives through pipes and hoses that have no special exemption from the laws of physics. The real kicker is that performance differences between Chevron and other top-tier competitors are inconsistent enough that most drivers in most vehicles under most driving conditions will not perceive a meaningful difference. Translation: you are often paying extra for a perception of quality that the infrastructure cannot consistently guarantee. Bottom line, premium chemistry, ordinary pipes. Know what you are actually buying. Station 8. Low-traffic rural stations. This is the most dangerous category on this list, and it is also the one that is hardest to avoid when you need it most. Low-traffic rural stations exist in a specific economic reality. They are essential infrastructure for the communities they serve, but they operate on margins so thin that maintenance investment is perpetually deferred. Older underground tanks, aging pump equipment, limited inspection cycles, and fuel that can sit in those tanks for weeks or months depending on seasonal demand patterns. Every one of these factors compounds the contamination risk you are taking on every time you have no other option. Here is the thing about the specific failure modes at these locations. Water contamination from aging tank seals introduces moisture into your fuel system. Sediment buildup from tank corrosion travels through the pump and into your fuel filter and injectors. And ethanol-blended fuel that has been sitting for an extended period begins to phase separate, meaning the ethanol and gasoline components partially dissociate, and what enters your engine is no longer the uniform blend it was certified as when it left the terminal. That is not a theoretical risk. That is documented chemistry with documented consequences for engine performance and fuel system longevity. Bottom line, the quietest stations on the highway often hide the loudest problems inside your engine. When you have no choice, run a single tank and get to a high-volume station as soon as possible. The fuel industry does not fail loudly. That is what makes it so dangerous to your wallet and your warranty. There are no dramatic warning lights, no immediate catastrophic failures, no obvious moments where you can point to the pump and say, that is where it went wrong. What you get instead is a slightly rough idle that you attribute to weather, a small drop in fuel economy that you chalk up to age, a hesitation under load that your dealership diagnoses as an injector issue and charges you accordingly without ever asking a single question about your fueling habits. Here is the thing about how this system is designed. Car manufacturers are building engines with tighter tolerances, more sophisticated fuel injection systems, and more demanding thermal management requirements than at any point in automotive history. Fuel providers are operating on volume, margin compression, and infrastructure that in many cases has not been meaningfully updated in decades. When those two realities collide, when a 2025 engine meets 1990s tank infrastructure, the cost of that collision does not go to the station. It does not go to the supplier. It transfers entirely to you. So here is the smartest move you can make with this information right now. Prioritize high-traffic stations because turnover is the single most effective protection against contamination. Seek out top-tier certified locations because the additive standards that automakers specified exist specifically to protect the engines they spent billions engineering. And stop assuming that a premium brand name on the sign guarantees premium fuel quality in your tank, because this list has demonstrated clearly that it does not. The difference between a healthy engine at 200,000 miles and a fuel system failure at 80,000 miles might be nothing more than where you filled up last Tuesday. Subscribe to MotorMine right now if you want the truth about the automotive industry in 2026, because the biggest and most expensive problems you will face as a driver are not happening in factories, and they are not happening in dealership service bays. They are happening at the pump, quietly, tank by tank, and we are the only channel telling you exactly what to do about it. This information could save you from a costly mistake that your warranty will not cover and your dealership will not explain.